Okay, good afternoon everyone. Today we're going to talk about props in React. So I've mocked up a little demo application and it's very similar to what you've done for your CodeFlix application. So we've still got items displayed on the page. Let's have a quick look. We'll do some training later on the platform because obviously you've got your React challenge tomorrow. So we'll probably look at the props training, right? That makes sense as we're doing a props workshop. Before that, this is my current application. I've replaced the movies, as you can see, with some amazing politicians that we have in this country and abroad. Yeah, so this is what we currently have. Is he really going to be our next Prime Minister? Who knows? It's probably better than him, though. So we've got the overlays as well, like most of you have done already. Or would these candidates be better? Who knows? Some similarities I think I can see between these. What do you think? Yeah? Anyway, that's just similar to what you've already got, right? But just a bit of fun. And the code for that then looks a bit like this. It should be streaming already. If it's not, just maybe refresh the page and give it a few seconds. Sometimes there's a bit of a delay beginning it. It might be because I haven't reset the cover. That's probably my fault. Yeah. It should be coming though eventually. Yeah. So I'm going to continue for now and hope that it is definitely going to stream. Okay. I'll zoom in a little bit then if we can't see the screen. Are you right now, Alofa? Yeah, you can see that. Cool. So in other words, this code looks very similar to the first few tasks of your app. Yeah, we created a row and a column layout, and then we basically repeated that code for each individual image, right? So I've just called it column, but you could call it anything you want. I think you had show or movie or something like that on your app. But for now, I'm just using that class name. But we can see here that we've got 1, 2, 3, so we've got 6 divs, right, to represent the 6 pictures. And they're all very, very similar. They've got the same class name, they've got a header, and they've got an image. Yeah? So that code is not very dry. Does anyone know what I mean by dry? The acronym dry, have you heard that one before? Don't repeat yourself, yeah. So instead it's pretty wet. What does wet stand for? You not heard that one? Write every time. So you have to write it every time. Yeah, keep writing it again and again. So there's just a couple of acronyms to help you remember. But in other words, we want our code to be as dry as possible when we write our code, because that just makes it a lot easier to maintain. Yeah, it helps with debugging. So we mentioned one way that we might be able to do this in React yesterday. Not yesterday, day before. What was that? Can anyone remember? As a general principle of React, if we want to create something new, a new feature, we might create a new function or a new component. Yeah, in React speak, functions can be components as well. Yeah, yeah. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to create a new component, and in this case, as we've got various political candidates or their fictional alternatives, then I'm going to create a new candidate component, yeah? So let's do that. And I'll need your help in writing it in a second. Yeah, I don't want a new folder, so let's scrap that for a start. And let's just create a new file. So if we go for candidate. Is it on YouTube yet, guys? Anyone who's watching? It's on YouTube, great. So I've created a candidate.js file. What do I need on the very first line to avoid the mistake that I did on Tuesday? So it's a React component. What do I need? Import React. Yep. Import React. Thank you very much. Yep. React as a string and capital R. Fantastic. That's that bit set up. I think we'll keep it as simple as possible. So let's just create a functional component. Anyone want to start me off? Function, maybe? Let's call it candidate. And if I want to use this component in another file, what do I need to do? Yep, export. Yeah, let's do an export default. It's the only function I'm going to write inside of this component, so let's do an export default.
So if, say, there was multiple functions within this,
yep,
we wouldn't use export default, we just use export.
you'd use something like that instead, yeah? Inside of curly braces, yeah. The other function, yeah. Yeah. Okay. Right. As for the actual function itself, I just want to return, well, essentially, one of my columns from here, right? So let's take Boris, why not? So I want to return something like that. A bit of JSX, yeah? I just want a function that returns some JSX to display something on my web page. Okay. So let's say instead then of this Boris component, I want to use my candidate component. I've already imported it if I uncomment that. And how would I include that component within my application? Do we remember the syntax to include that component? Hold on, let's just fix this first, right? So we've got a dynamic link there. So what should we do for now? Yeah, just for now I'm gonna import it across, and then we'll fix it later. Expect assignment function call instead saw an expression, line 5. Yep, so what's missing from my function? I need to return something, and I just want to return my JSX. Okay. Sorry, yeah, were you giving me an answer, Borik, or? Yeah, so to use a custom component or a user-defined component in React, we open up just a normal tag, and inside of it we can write candidate, because that's what we imported. I can now also obviously just close that. So I'm not getting any errors, so will that look the same as before, or will there be any differences? So that's my candidate component with Boris. We've imported his image. Should be the same, right? Hopefully. Let's have a look. Yep, Boris is still there. But what if I wanted to then get rid of all this code as well? So in other words, we want 6 candidates, right? So let me comment out all this code for now. And instead, let's have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Annoyingly, it went over there. I always forget this one. Is it shift? No. Shift Alt. There we go. Don't know how with that one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so that's 6 candidates in there. Do you foresee any problems with how I've written it like that? What's going to be the problem? We're going to have 6 Boris pictures, yeah? Oh, and we've got them really big as well. Whee! Okay, that's because I took it outside of my row, right? Let's put him back to normal size because he's scary enough as it is when he's small. It's like what? So let's just have some rows there so that we still maintain our there. And we can close it as well, all right? And we will close it there. Okay, hopefully now that has... We ignore everything from 26 down. It shouldn't be a problem. It should just display again. Yep. Okay, so we got 6 Borises. Scary. And instead, we want to make sure that we display the original 6 pictures. So in other words, how can we use candidate just as a template and then pass in certain information into the candidate component to differentiate them, to make them slightly different? Yeah, they're very similar. It keeps our code dry by just listing 6 candidates, but we don't want them to be exactly the same. We want to add some dynamic values in there, add some variables in there. How could we do that? We could make the function dynamic first. All right, let's start with that. So what are your suggestions? Props, yeah. So in other words, to make it our component dynamic, we use props. Yeah, that's the key lesson today. To make our component dynamic, we can use props. So yeah, we can put props in there. Then what could we replace that we've currently got hard-coded?
And then instead of Boris, we'll have
Props.name. Can I put props.image for now? Is that all right? Just to differentiate it from, I don't know what you're going to put up here yet. What else do we want to make dynamic? I mean, let's assume this header we want to be different for each person as well, the way it was before. So props dot candidate or name, yeah. Candidate's fine. Name, because the candidate's the whole object and it's confusing with the function. I agree. Yeah. So let's go name. Like that, or is that wrong? Yeah, must be between curly brackets because we want to evaluate it as a variable, evaluate it as JavaScript. And that can be props image again, you say? Yeah. Can it be props image? I don't think that's going to be great using props image again. I'd probably use maybe the name again. Yeah, because otherwise we're going to be taking a path to an image eventually when we sort it out. I'll just use props.name again for now. Okay, good. So that now looks like our component could be dynamic if we pass it the right things.
And then when we call the function, we need to have the name property and the image property.
Yep, so what props did we use in candidate? We used a name and we used an img prop. How do we pass props into a component? Well, the syntax is what, guys? Who can tell me the syntax for that? One board point up for grabs.
And then we call image a single quote.
Name equals
Single quote.
single quotes.
Boris.
Let's say Boris for now. Yeah. And what was my other prop image? Yeah, img. The same syntax. Yeah. Do I need a comma or something in here, like a list, or? Just check it. It gives you a hint, right? It gives you that red underline anyway. Some people might put a comma in there because they think we need to separate it. But they're just like HTML properties, yeah? You just do whatever the property name is and equals in quotes. So image, what am I going to make the image equal to then? But we've imported the image up here, right? So do I write Boris like that? In curly braces again, fantastic, yep. Because it's not a bit of text, it's a variable which contains, well, the path and the you know, it tells you where to get the image from basically, to render that image. Okie doke. Yeah, we're probably going to have to do all of them, right, to display it properly, but let's see what happens now then. Do we think it will break? It doesn't break completely. Okay, interesting. So these ones here, just to avoid confusion, let's comment out these again. I think it ends there, right? 1, 2, and a closing one. Yep, okay. So we managed to correctly get Boris in there, and then we don't really get much else. Well, that makes sense, right? Because we've dynamically referred to these things, and it's not able to find them. So it's not rendering anything. It's created the DOM elements for them, but it's not actually displayed them. So we would have to go through each one and do something very similar, right? So yeah, we're going to get a different order, but it doesn't matter. Oh, that was in there, right? That's fine, I'll just do it like that. Bear with me. And who we got left? And we have, couldn't forget, dear old Theresa May.
So the single quotes.
What's that, Ewan? Yeah, go ahead.
Where we've got row and double quotes and single quotes.
Okay, yeah, so I should be consistent, shouldn't I? Yeah. There's no difference in terms of what's valid, but I should just be consistent, definitely. If I've used double quotes there, I should probably use double quotes there.
So there's no importance other than that.
No importance other than being consistent. No. Let's see whether that's worked. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, awesome. And we're correctly displaying some sort of name that seems to fit the picture. Okay. I mean, yeah, in a nutshell, that's props really, yeah. To pass it in using this syntax. If we want to hard code the value or just type a value, then we can put it between single or double quotes. Just to prove that, right, I can quickly do one in double quotes as Ewan commented on it. And still works, no difference, right? Can I do backticks? No. Because essentially it's a HTML tag, right? If I want to use backticks, I'm going to have to do something like that. Would that work? So I've wrapped my name in a backtick. So I wrapped the backticks in a JavaScript bracket, and that still works also, right? So if you've got a long sort of string that you want to use a backtick, or a mix of variables and strings, then you could also use the backtick in that way to pass in a prop. Yeah. And a prop doesn't just have to be a string. Well, in fact, the image isn't. The image is a variable, so we could pass in an array there. We could pass in an object. We could pass in a function. Lots of different things we can pass in as props. Yeah, and we'll see that increasingly as we go forward. Different ways to pass around data. But essentially, all this data is passed to our component, and then it doesn't change, does it? It's not like we can click on something and Trump changes to, I'm not going to say anything rude, but whatever. But yeah, Trump changes to something else, right? So if we wanted to have some sort of functionality there, where maybe when we hover over a certain part of the image, the wording changes, or anything like that, what other sort of how to describe it without giving it away? So we've got props to pass data. If we want to change the data in our browser, what else could we work with in React? So props is, if you like, just send static data. Yeah, it doesn't change throughout the lifetime of our application. If we wanted to have some dynamic data in there, data that we expect to change, what could we use? Maybe I'm not wording it correctly, but yeah, I was thinking more of something that's very commonly used with class-based components in React, or even using the new React hooks. This lets us add this sort of data to functional components. What I'm trying to get at is state. So we'll talk about state next week. And yeah, that's a way to declare some value that we expect to change in the near future, maybe as a result of some user interaction. When they click on something, when they hover on something, the data can change dynamically. So props is just static data, if you like. We just pass that at the runtime, and that draws our application, that renders our DOM for us. Whereas state, that we've now got some interactivity. We've got values that can change based on the user's interactions. But we'll talk about state next Thursday, I believe, so this time next week. Cool. Yeah, I guess there's not really much else I want to add on props. Is that format fairly self-explanatory? So we create our own custom tag based on either a function, or of course this could be a class as well, right? We could get rid of that. Have to do extends, React component, and so forth. Yeah, but for now we can just leave it as a simple component because it's just rendering some JSX. Yeah. Any comments on that then, guys, before we move on?
Sorry if I'm getting you to repeat yourself.
That's all right.
I don't remember if there was a time when you guys said the difference between a class app and a function app.
A class-based component and a function-based component. Yep. So the differences we haven't really come on to yet. Obviously the syntax is slightly different, yeah. But one of the key differences historically was that functional components could not have state. They could only be for very simple presentational components, whereas class-based components could use state. Now we have something called React hooks, which allows us to use state in function-based components. So if you like, the differences we're going to come on to definitely next week. But But yeah, they were historically the differences. Yeah. Okie doke. So what I wanted to do really was just finish off with some props training on the platform, and just get you to, well, maybe I'll do the run through of the first question, and then we can have a bit of class participation to go through some of the other questions in preparation for tomorrow, because you've got a 20% chance that at least one prop question comes up, right? So maybe it's a good idea to go through a few of them. Okay. I don't know if you want that lovely code with those pictures. It's up to you. I can share it again on Slack if you want. Alright, so React training, beginner. Props. You're welcome to obviously follow along on your own laptops if you want. And let's start it. So we can clearly see this similar syntax to what we used before. Clearly if you've got it on your own laptops, not if you're looking at the really bright screen with the sunshine behind it. But we've got the component name, we've got the name of the prop in white, then an equals sign, then the value of the prop that gets passed to the prop object so that we can use it. And then our test, we expect the text to equal welcome to React. Oh no, not just welcome to React. I think it's going to be dynamic in some way, right? Welcome to React. It must be Peter, right? All right, let me have to zoom out. Yeah, welcome to React Peter. And then we've got a different test case below where we've got a prop user with the value of Laura, and we expect welcome to React Laura. Okay, so we've got one component. Let's make it dynamic as we did with our candidate component and get the values from the props. So obviously before we hard coded something like that, right? Welcome to React, comma, Peter. Now of course that would work for the first case. No, it wouldn't, not like that. If we got rid of the quotes, that would work for the first case, but it wouldn't work for the second case. So this is a clear instance of when we need a prop. Here we want the same component to vary based on the data we pass it. So how would I amend this then? Instead of Peter, I would write props.user. Yeah? Because the name of our property here is user. And, yep, to make sure it's evaluated as a variable or as a little bit of JavaScript, let's make sure we wrap it in curly braces. Yeah? Happy with that now? Shall I run it? Yeah? There we go, confetti time again. Any questions on that basic one?
Where did shallow come into play?
Shallow, so shallow, if we look up shallow, this is part of the test framework, so not quite, is it part of Jest or part of Enzyme? Could be part of Enzyme. Yeah, so this is part of one of the testing frameworks that we use to test React components. This is part of Enzyme, and all it's doing is doing a shallow render of a component and assigning it into a variable. So a shallow render just means it's just looking at that component only. It's not going deeper and deeper into the component tree, yeah, into lots of different components, because we could have components nested within other components and so forth. The shallow render will just evaluate that component as it is without depending on any external components. So you don't need to worry too much about it for now. Just know, I guess, where it's coming from, and know that how it's used in our test framework here is just to assign the welcome component into a variable so that we can run tests on that variable. That's all it's doing, yeah? Welcome equals a shallow render of our component with a certain prop, and then inside of that variable we look for the text node and we expect it to equal welcome to React Peter. Yeah, that's all that test is doing. Does that help a little bit, Boric? Yeah, I mean, if you want to read more, obviously just go to Enzyme and type in shallow render, Enzyme documentation, and type in shallow render.
Can you just write the main function, like it will be welcome inside parentheses what it will come using?
Can I do what, sorry? Can I
The
invoke
invoke, the function.
the function? What, you want to invoke a component, or? Oh, oh, what, you want to see what welcome looks like?
How are you supposed to write it? I'm confused with it.
Oh, right, I mean, so in our React application, we would just write it like that. Yeah, so if we defined a function, and then we want to render it somewhere in our JSX, then we would just do it like that. And then if we wanted to render another component with Laura this time, then we would do that. Yeah. Or you could have
If I want to make it dynamic.
that is, oh, what if this was also a variable?
Yeah.
I don't know, what if you had names equal something like that, you're saying? Yeah, then you can either, of course, just do names 0 and names 1 like that in curly braces, or, yeah, we'll get onto it later, but essentially you're going to map over names, and then you'd have a name, and that name instead would return a component or return some JSX, but you generally do that up here, yeah? But to make the prop dynamic, you just need to wrap it in curly braces again, yeah? And then you're getting it from an external source, but the dynamic bit usually comes inside in the function, yeah? So using props.user is how it's made dynamic. Okie doke. Let's try and do one or two more, and let's move forward. Yep. Well, look, it's a President Day, Politics Day. It's all the politics I can take for one day, so we'll just finish off this one. Right. So we're back to Bill Clinton now. How would I set this one up? We've got some selectors. Where did you find those, Nilofer?
Dot name, the first name.
So you've seen that we've got a find dot first name and we've got a find dot last name, yeah? So you're saying there's some selectors that we need to put into our JSX, yeah? So what do you want them inside? Do you want them inside a div?
Yeah, we can have another div.
So you want two divs? Okay, yeah, I'll tell you what, I'll do it like that. And you were saying do class name. Oops. Yep. Equal to
First name.
first name. Yep. And you said you wanted a second one. What's that one going to have?
Last
Last
one.
name. Mm-hmm. I think I'm going to have to drop this down so that it's in line. So let's wrap it all in some brackets, right? Okay. So we've got a first name and a last name div like that. What we're going to put inside them? Props. Okay. So I assume you want some curly braces to display the props, yeah? Props dot first name. And the last one is going to be props dot last name, right?
First name equals to props dot first name.
Okay, so you're saying here we've got some text and we need to actually render that text as it is, yeah? So something like that. Mm-hmm. Semicolon. What there? Oh, after the return. Yeah, okay. All right. Any problems with that one? Space in the first div here? No, where?
First
Oh,
after first.
there. Okay. Let me run it. I'll see what we get. Yeah. I don't think it's great yet, but we'll see what errors we get and then we'll fix them, right? We'll work on it incrementally. Okay. Okay, so we've got a few errors. We have, oops, you didn't return anything. So in other words, something's just not running at all. Because we've got a syntax error down here. Have you come across this one yet? Adjacent JSX elements must have an enclosing tag. Come across that one yet in your React applications? Yeah?
All in on div.
Could do, yep. So how do we fix that? Well, Richard gave us a suggestion.
I agree.
You agree? Porrick agrees, yep. So in other words, we need to return just one element, one outer element, and inside of that we can put additional elements if we wish. So one potential solution would be to use a div. Another div, yeah, right. And wrap all of our other divs and elements inside. So you also see this message here. Did you want a JSX fragment? Just store that in your heads for now, and I will show you what one of those is in a second, yeah? But that's a suggestion that is making there for you in the linter. Okay. So, I think we got pretty close that time. No elegance issues, but it failed on the last part of the test. So, last name Clinton failed, but it seems to have got past first name Bill. We can just double check that by hovering over the raw results to give us a bit more information. And yeah, you might be able to see it's a bit small, but near the bottom of that blue box, it says actual last space name colon Clinton with no spaces in between that. That's our actual value, but we expected last space name colon space Clinton. Yeah, so we just missed out a little space in there, and that would be on line 8 between name and our props. Let's try once again. So those raw results can be really useful if you're expecting something, you know, you think your code is very, very close, but there's a slight error. Ewan, did you have a question? Oh, thank you. Or whoever did it, yeah? So good group effort. So yeah, nice use of props there, well solved, and solved pretty quickly as well. The raw results, so you've got to do something wrong to begin with, so let me just break it again. So I'm going to get rid of the div again, because I'm going to tell you what a fragment is as well. It might be over your head now, but you'll come across it again. Let's run it again. So when we break it, raw results is in the top right of the red box. And there's a problem, right? So raw results is only going to happen if you manage to return something. So in this case, I've got a syntax error or a parsing error, so therefore nothing is returned. There's no raw results to show. Let's fix that by adding a JSX fragment. There's a couple of ways to do it. The old long way used to actually be to type React fragment, I think, like that. I'm not even sure. I think it's like that. It could be with a capital F. The new shorthand way, which is what we're going to go with, is just to have an empty tag like that. And we can, of course, close it down the bottom. So when we've got lots of components and we're rendering components within components within components, if we have to wrap each one in a div, over the course of our application, we might get 10,000 extra divs or something. Yeah, it just becomes div, 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 and it's crazy. So, as a solution to that problem, the developers of React have introduced the React fragment. So instead, you can put just this little symbol, and nothing actually gets rendered into the DOM. Yeah, it allows us to enclose all of our elements in an enclosing tag, but that doesn't pollute the DOM with lots of extra divs. Yeah, so that's a nice little readability solution, and improves the elegance, I guess, of your DOM and of your HTML pages by doing that. So if I now break it again slightly by putting last name together and run it, then of course it fails again on the last name. This time when we hover over raw results, we can get something. Yeah, there's no syntax errors. The code managed to run and return something. It just didn't return what we expected. So that's how I get raw results, Porek. Yeah, once I've managed to get my code to run, just hover over the top right, and that will bring up this blue box showing your raw output. Yeah, can be useful in certain situations, which is why we've left it in there. And yeah, of course, to fix it, I'll just put my space back, and then we get confetti again, right? Nice. Do you want to leave it there, or would it be useful to do one more? Just one more? Yeah? Okie doke. Okay then. What is expected this time? No, I can't really zoom in anymore, guys. Sorry, I haven't got good window manager yet. So, display score details for Andrea. Well, for any user, right? Person looks like an object with two properties or two keys, name and score. Then we're doing a shallow render of the player component. How many props are we passing that player component? How many bits of data? Two? What? Props.name and props.score? Uh-huh. So if I want to display the name over here after name, could I do props.name? And what else do I need? Score. Do I need a separate selector?
Yes.
Oh, I see, yep. So instead then, I've got a class name of name, and the other selector that Nilofer has pointed out under my then comment here, you can see we've got a dot score. So that means that we have a separate class name of score. And as the question sets up with a paragraph, I'm just going to put another paragraph. Oops. Scoff.
Does score have to be lowercase?
Does score have to be lowercase? What, the actual class name? Sorry, I'm trying to get it back over on the screen. There we go. So did you mean the class name, or you mean this bit down? The one in orange and the one in green. What do you think, guys? We've got down here on this line, we've got dot score written there, and then the text we expect to be equal score 65. So which one needs to be a capital and which one needs to be lowercase?
The green has to be text. This should be lowercase.
So the class name should be lowercase, yep, because we've got a dot lowercase s. And the score, we've got a capitalized score bit of text, so that must be uppercase. Yeah? Alright. How's that looking? Should I run it now? See what happens?
We have a component person.
You have a what, Nilofa?
We have a component person in the
A component person. We don't have a component person, do we? There's this person here. So I think Vincent maybe had something to say about that, did you? So the component is player. Say again, Vincent.
So, how to explain it? If it goes to the first class name,
First class name, yep.
it should be props.person.name, shouldn't it?
So you think it should be props.person.name rather than props.name. Interesting. What do the rest of you think? Will props.name work? Or does it have to be props.person.name? Which way? Over there. Okay.
Because the variable's a person. Because if you just do props.name, I'll not do that. Sorry? Because on the left-hand side, it's a variable.
We need
It's a variable person.
person that's
So we're not just on name and store.
But the player as person.
Okay?
Player as equal as person.
So yeah, so here we've got our player component, and this looks like a prop to me. Yeah, this looks like the syntax for prop that we've just looked at. Is that called user? Or not user? Is it called name? Is it called score? No, it's called person. So therefore, we definitely need props.person. Look, if I run it now, we won't get anything. We might get some warnings. No, the test just fails, right? And if we show raw result, expected name Andrea, assertion error, expected name to equal name. Yeah, so in other words, it's just we actually got name nothing, undefined. Yeah, name props.name was undefined because there was no prop called name that we passed into our properties object. Instead, there is a props.person. What data type is person? It's an object, right? We've got it defined up here. Given when then. Yeah, a formula for writing tests. So given a certain amount of information, when we render or pass that information in a certain way, then what do we expect? Yeah, a nice simple algorithm to follow for writing tests. So how do we access the name property inside a person? Dot name, exactly right, yeah. And then, just to be awkward, let's write the other one in other syntax. If I don't use dot syntax, I can use square bracket syntax. And would I just write score like that? Must be in quotes, yeah. If we're writing it with square bracket notation, the name must be in quotes. I'm going to run it now, and hopefully it's confetti time, and that will wrap up the props workshop. We'll have any questions in a second. There we go. Beautiful. Well done, guys. Yep, so just be aware of that if your prop is not being passed in as an actual string or a primitive value, you might need to do a little bit of extra work, access the properties within an object or something like that. Any questions on anything we covered today? Are your brains exploding yet from 4 days of intense boot camp stuff? Yeah? I think you're doing very well. So obviously you could watch these videos again on YouTube, just pause it, play back certain parts, try and copy the code, manipulate it. Of course, these are the trainings. You know what training this is, props training, so you can do that on your own as well. Yeah, and any questions, just give me a shout. Shall I end it there? Yep, okay, fantastic. Thank you very much.